Hi, my name is Carmen, and I am an early childhood special education teacher, a life and ADHD coach, and I'm the host of this podcast, Authentically ADHD. I created this podcast to help anyone wondering if they have ADHD, people who have been diagnosed for a while and want some more support and community. I'm here to bring you the latest research on ADHD and neurodiversities while we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of ADHD. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, and welcome to Authentically ADHD. I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Carmen, and I am the host of this podcast. I'm also a certified life coach and an early special education teacher. As a late diagnosed woman with ADHD, I created this podcast to help anyone who has ADHD to better understand themselves, bring the latest research, and help you to work with your brain instead of against it. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi there, and welcome back to the podcast. How are you? Summer is going by way too fast for me. How about you? I'd actually love to teach year-round in trimesters rather than the entire summer off, because I definitely get some of my best energy in the summer. When do you get your best energy? Do you know? How about a better question? If I were to tell you to identify yourself without using job titles, family titles, or achievements, do you know what that would be? If you do, that's great. If not, you are definitely not alone. I promise you. I used to feel like I had no idea who I was. If I took away teacher, daughter, sister, girlfriend, podcaster, coach, tutor, and all my other titles, I didn't know who I was. I had to build my own identity first. So, why? So, I'm going to explain a little about how I did that and why we grow up this way, why we have to do this, and give you little places to start building your own identity, okay? So let's start off with what is an identity? An identity essentially is all of the thoughts and feelings that you have about you. So, what are yours? And if you haven't done a ton of self-development work or therapy, you may notice, and even if you have, you may notice that those thoughts and feelings that you have about yourself are not very nice and even downright mean. You may think that you are stupid, lazy, crazy, messy, annoying, etc. And this leads to feeling shame about yourself. This leads to feelings of inadequacy, shame, guilt, lonely, sadness, and or grief, and more. No good results can come from this because if you've been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, you know that our thoughts provoke emotion, which drives our action, in turn creating our results, which we are usually unhappy with if we have this warped identity. Yes, I said warped identity because this identity still isn't yours. It's not yours. It's made up of the things the adults in your life said to you as you grew up, what you saw in the media growing up, and all of the comments that you picked up on as you grew. See, our brains work in this weird type of sorting way with information that we gain as we grow up. And I know this part of it because of the schooling that I went through to be a early childhood special education teacher. It starts in the beginning as you're learning vocabulary and you learn the word dog. You then label, if you've never noticed a kid do this, the first animal that they see that's four-legged, everything is now a dog until you teach them the different names. And then it's like little different file folders are made in their brains and they understand that a dog is a dog and a pig is a pig and a deer is a deer and so on and so forth. But our brains sort on how we perceive what is said by the way it's said, by social norms, fashion, looks, and different parts of our identity. We take all of those different things in and we sort them as good, bad, weird, do this, don't do that. It's another way we as ADHDers try to mask and fit in as we grow up. And it's, again, how developmentally our identity develops as we grow, taking in the information around us and then sorting it in our warped brains. Unfortunately, what happens is we pick up other people's thoughts and emotions and make up an identity from what other people think and say, and from the media. So our identity at that point is not only like really messed up and warped, but it's not even our own. Having an identity helps you build confidence. It helps with reaching your goals because you are clear about who you are and what you want. So how do we change this? Well, we literally need to build it back up ourselves, unfortunately. We need to usually start with how we think and feel about ourselves. And this type of work is usually best done in trauma-informed therapy, especially if you have no experience with this. If you're new to this, I definitely highly recommend trauma-informed therapy. Coaching can also help, but I feel that paired with therapy, or therapy needs to come first, to get to know yourself on these levels and like to actually just accept yourself instead of shaming yourself for having needs. You meet those needs for yourself, and you have people in your life who are willing to also meet the classic relational needs that we all have and we need to be met. You need to start validating your emotions and your needs instead of shaming and berating yourself. This is where it starts, and it's hard, and it's going to be a little painful. I'm sorry, but we have to get through the emotion. And it also takes time. Again, like most everything I talk about on my podcast, it's going to take time. It doesn't happen overnight, but eventually you can become a self-harmer. The longer you go through adulthood, not meeting your needs and putting everyone before yourself is eroding to your self-worth, your confidence, your identity. And then you are then deciding to continue to harm yourself by not meeting your own needs and not growing and changing and developing that identity. So, some things to start with is writing out what you think and feel about yourself, and then read it and pick out the ones that weren't created by you, the ones that you don't necessarily believe or don't want to believe. Pick out the ones that are not what you actually want to believe that is part of you and throw them out. It's not you. Those are made up of what other people think about you, okay? Fill in the blanks after that. What do you really think about yourself? You may not know, or you may still have really mean inner self-talk. That's okay. That's normal. It's just usually a sign that some of this work may be therapy work. And here's the thing. People think that they don't have trauma because one big thing didn't happen to them. But it was trauma when the negative opinions, statements, or shaming actions of authority figures in childhood affected your self-concept. That was trauma. It was little t trauma, but it was trauma. And it happened over and over again. It was trauma when your needs and emotions were not validated, were ignored, avoided, or shoved down. That's why this work involves therapy, because it's heavy as F. It really is. We grow up in a warped reality, and that is trauma. Think about it. We grow up with a warped sense of identity. Essentially, it's a warped reality. We grow up basically gaslighting ourselves to be quote unquote normal and quote unquote fit in, and we mask so that we can fit in and not stick out. That in itself is trauma. So that's why I always suggest seeking trauma-informed therapy with this type of work. Another thing that you can do is just start listing out things that you actually like doing and things that you don't like doing, and just things that you would do for free. And there are a bunch of identity little tests or builders out there that can help you with starting to build your own identity. But as you recognize which thoughts you adopted from others as you grew up, it's a little bit easier to then kind of maybe then build your own. And I know we have ADHD already. This is not fair. It's and it's really not anyone's fault. The knowledge and research on ADHD is still growing, and it's still new, unfortunately, and especially around ADHD in women, with the way that we grow up, the way that we are stereotyped, the way that we are expected to grow. So once you start doing these things for yourself and digging down deep into who you are and what you really want, you will feel more powerful as a grown-ass adult, because that's who you are. But like I said, it takes time. It takes a lot of patience and emotional regulation, and it takes kindness and compassion for yourself. You have to have kindness and compassion for yourself in order to do this. It takes true acceptance and love for yourself. This is why you may want to do some of this work with a therapist. And I know you're really sick of me saying you may want to seek out a therapist. Other ways that I have grown my identity is spending time alone, intentional time alone, and seeing if I liked just being with myself and my thoughts. If you're scared to do that, that's an indicator that therapy might be necessary. Some other ways that I do this is by trying new things and seeing if I like them or not, or trying new foods, seeing if I like them or not. And those different types of small things to start building your identity really help you in the long run with the hard and long and painful work that it really does take to build an identity. This was a shorter episode, and I really wanted it to be because I wanted to kind of gloss over this, because in my Patreon, I have a whole workbook about building your identity with ADHD. And so check that out if you want. Ask me about it, DM me about it. I really hope this episode helped you understand why it's hard for an ADHDer to build an identity and gave you some good starting points. That's all I have for now, my friends. Stay authentic, and we will talk soon. Speaking of extra supports, I just wanted to tell you all that I've updated my Patreon page to include all of the resources that I've really ever made to be held in one place. Just head to my show notes. The VIP members do get a little extra, but you can also purchase like my brand new Ultimate ADHD Journal and Planner, which I've been using for the past year. That has worked. Nothing is priced over $10, and everything is at least 50 to 100 pages that you can download and print. You can get it to bind it and send it to you, or you can just read it off your screen and use notebook paper. So if you want or need any type of that kind of extra support, just head to my show notes and click the Patreon link to join. I hope to see you in there.